SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Maestro of Mayhem, watch out. All right, here we go. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to CasinoBeats Summit 2024. This talk is called Nostalgia, Innovation, and the Future. So first you might be wondering, who am I? Well, I come from the video game industry, not the slot machine industry. However, I believe that some of the approaches that we're using in video games may be useful for improving slot machine design. I'll share a bit about my background, talk about some of the games I worked on, and then dive into the principles of game design. So my name is John Romero, and I'm part Yaqui and Cherokee Native American, and I grew up in the desert of Tucson, Arizona. And when I was 8, we moved to Northern California, and I've been deeply immersed in the world of game programming since the year 1979. So I started learning how to program games on a mainframe computer in the local college computer lab when I was 11 years old. Amazingly, no one seemed to notice that an 11-year-old was running around tinkering with a machine the size of a room and pretending to be a computer scientist. 1982, my parents finally got a home computer. It was an Apple II Plus. It took over my life so completely that I'm pretty sure I started speaking in binary and dreaming in 8-bit graphics. I spent the next 5 years glued to my computer, learning how to program and design games like a mad scientist. By the time I turned 20, I'd cranked out 53 games. That's right, 53. My social life, let's just say it had a game over screen. Just kidding. By 20, I was married and had my first son. Yeah. In 1982, I founded my very first game company, which I named Capital Ideas Software. During the early years of this venture, an impressive total of 15 of my initial games were successfully published under its banner. And then I got my first game industry job at Origin Systems in 1987. Origin Systems created a hugely popular and influential role-playing series named Ultima. The series started in 1981, and it culminated in 1997's seminal release, Ultima Online, the beginning of the modern MMORPG. Ultima Online, a subscription-based game, is still operating 27 years after its release with 680,000 players. I adored my job at Origin, but I left after a brief 9-month romance to start my next venture, Inside Out Software. After another whirlwind 9 months there, I founded yet another game company, Ideas from the Deep. I squeezed in the creation of 2 more games before joining Softdisk in Louisiana in March of 1989. Apparently, in the 80s, I had the attention span of a goldfish when it came to sticking with one company. Now, allow me to delve into the details of the significant and influential games that I have had the privilege of creating throughout my career. While at Softdisk, I assembled a game development team of 4 people, and together we created the first 3 games in the Commander Keen series. Has anybody played these games, Commander Keen games? All right, nodding. You don't have to raise your hands. We released the trilogy on December 14th of 1990, marking a significant technological breakthrough. When the PC was launched in August of 1981, no one had realized its potential for smooth scrolling graphics like those on the Nintendo and other consoles of the time. Commander Keen demonstrated that it was possible, leading to a gradual release of smooth scrolling platform games for the PC. PC Gamer magazine noted in January of 2016 in an article titled The 50 Most Important PC Games of All Time, Commander Keen put id Software on the map, and Commander Keen's groundbreaking smooth scrolling on PCs was a revelation in 1990. And it's hard to believe today that the NES was back then capable of things that the PC couldn't do. And looking back, I'm humbled to have a game of mine included in this list for the year 1990 when Secret of Monkey Island was released. We were the only two games noted as being important in 1990 by PC Gamer. So our team of four then left Softdisk to officially establish our new game company, id Software. In 1991, we cranked out 13 games. It was like a video game boot camp, perfect practice for the big leagues. And that year, we also dipped our toes into the wild world of 3D game development with Hover Tank 1 and Catacomb 3D, learning that making games in 3D was a lot like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while riding a roller coaster. The first 5 months of 1992 were dedicated to creating Wolfenstein 3D, marking the inception of the first-person shooter genre, although in its most rudimentary form. Despite its simplicity, the game was groundbreaking, astonishing players with an experience that had never been seen before. And in 1993, we spent 11 months making the groundbreaking 3D shooter Doom. We released it on December 10th of 1993, and the game industry was changed. Wolfenstein 3D was the game that started the first-person shooter genre, but Doom is the game that defined the genre. And if you're keeping score, Doom was my 90th game. In 1994, we developed the sequel, Doom 2, over the course of 8 months. It turned out even better than the original. And we devoted the next 18 months to developing another groundbreaking 3D shooter, Quake. The game set a new standard in the industry, with modern 3D shooters drawing heavily from the innovations and techniques that we pioneered in our early work. And Commander Keen, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, and Quake were listed as 4 of the 50 most important PC games of all time by PC Gamer. The first paragraph of the article starts like this. Imagine PC gaming today without Doom. Would we still be playing first-person shooters? Probably, but who knows what they would look like. Without Doom, an entire decade of gaming would have followed a very different path. Needless to say, becoming good at understanding game design didn't happen by osmosis. During the 1980s, I played arcade and computer games every day for years. All of them. I lived in arcades. I played in arcade tournaments. I played computer games on different kinds of computers. I absorbed all the nuance and detail that was designed into these games. It was my life. So now I'm going to talk about game design influences. So there's nothing more interactive that affords more player agency than video games. From indie games like Bastion here to MMORPGs, which are massively multiplayer online role-playing games, to AAA action blockbusters. Video games are really deep in design. And there's always something that you can take away, modify, and make your own with enough study. And nearly all art is influenced by that which came before it. Our Commander Keen game was directly influenced by Super Mario Brothers, which was influenced by Donkey Kong. And Mario first appeared in Donkey Kong and was named after Mario Arnold Segale, the man who leased a warehouse to Nintendo. And the idea for Donkey Kong was based on the love triangle of Popeye, Olive Oil, and Bluto. When Nintendo couldn't get the licensing rights for the characters, Olive became Pauline, Bluto became Donkey Kong, and Popeye became Mario. Shigeru Miyamoto, the game's designer, loved the 1933 movie King Kong, so he made the enemy a giant ape. And our game Doom had several influences. The story was influenced by our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, where demons had overrun the earth. And the dark humor, shotgun, and the chainsaw came from Evil Dead 2. And the huge amount of enemies and the Space Marine protagonist came from the movie Aliens. And then Doom influenced the story of John Wick. John Wick is an unkillable hero who is avenging his dog that was killed by a Russian mobster. Doom Guy is avenging the death of his pet rabbit at the hands of demons. The name of the rabbit is Daisy, and so is John Wick's dog. So Doom influenced Marcus Persson to become a game programmer. Several years and 28 games later, Marcus created the game Minecraft, which is a worldwide phenomenon, as you probably know. But Minecraft didn't come out of thin air. The game Infiniminer actually created a block-based world where players use pickaxes to dig cubes and find materials like stone, gold, and diamonds. So let me shift gears into a slots adjacent area, poker. Lots of people play poker and generally understand all the different types of hands. Even the simplest games can be innovated, and that's the power of design. Taking a simple game that everyone understands and adding to it in a way that the audience enjoys can potentially bring success. And it was a really great idea to bring poker from the table and into a video game. It's very popular, and many players enjoy losing privately on a machine rather than publicly at a table. One of the best ways of innovating is to look at another design domain that's full of examples, such as video games. Has anyone heard of Balatro? It's a computer game that uses a standard deck and then some, and it was released only 3 months ago. Balatro takes ideas from other types of video games to create a brand new type of experience, a super-powered version of poker. It walks the player through the flow of the game and introduces the differences between normal poker and its own rules. It gives the player goals to achieve, and it makes those early goals achievable. And it's a really refreshing take on poker, and I can only wonder if some of its lessons could be applied to video poker. And there are plenty of pressure points to get players to spend. Of course, the normal player's understanding of poker's rules and how far you can take them out of their comfort zone to understand new rules is something to experiment with, but I believe that there's plenty of room to push video poker forward. Sure, you can't go full Balatro on players, but you can do some new things and see if players will follow. So now I'm going to just talk about game design innovation. When you look at the history of video games, there are very few games that changed the entire industry. Pong, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Super Mario Brothers, Doom, and Minecraft. And when you look at your industry, which games really broke the mold and showed everyone a new way to make slots? So let's go through the list real quick. Liberty Bell, obviously the originator. Money Honey, which was the first electromechanical. Video game industry had its own electromechanical revolution early on. Fortune Coin, which was the first video slot. Blazing Sevens, the first progressive jackpot. Megabucks, the first multi-slot networked progressive. Reel 'em In, the first second screen bonus slot. Game Maker, multiple slot machines in one. Cabinets, huge. Silver Strike, the first collectible token prize slot. Wheel of Fortune, the first bonus wheel and use of licensed property. Sex and the City, the first multi-level bonus and immersive storytelling slot. And then Sphinx 3D, finally, the first glasses-free stereoscopic 3D slot machine. Like many innovations in the slot world happened because of technology invention. And this is basically the same in the world of video games. But we've passed the point where technical innovation beats design innovation. The technology available today is incredibly powerful. We can make anything appear on our screens at high frame rates with fully encompassing sound. And now it's time for design to shine. And on the list of the most seminal games in video game history, only one didn't depend on technology breakthroughs. It depended on a design breakthrough. And that game is Minecraft, because by that time, technology had already innovated up to a point where you can show anything.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Cashless by installing self-service coin redemption machines. And with the coming popularization of NFT tap to play, Slots will be able to not only accept payment from your smartphone, but your smartphone will be able to receive the payout using Tap to Play. Tap to Pay for accepting payments has been technically possible for the last 6 years on smartphones. Slots already have some of the best video and audio technology that you could hope for. The one thing that could push today's slots to the next level is game design. So before we get to design, one of the most important questions to ask ourselves before we make a game is, who is our audience? There are an incredible number of audiences for games. Physical games like jigsaw puzzles, Go, checkers, chess, all card games, basically all board games. Digital games in several genres from narrative adventures, RPGs, shooters, RTSs, action platformers, fighting games, life sims, business sims, puzzlers, grand strategy, and many others. All games serve an audience, and that audience is composed of a range of players who are novices up to highly skilled players. And when you're making a game for the general public whose game literacy is low, you have to design for that common denominator. And if you've spent any time designing games for Facebook, you know what I mean. Or slots for that matter. Yeah, I get it. You cannot design above the general audience's understanding. You cannot overthrow the receiver, as we say in the game industry. But you do need to push the popular mechanics a little higher. Getting the populace's game literacy to a higher level opens the door to more engagement. And I'll talk about design trends. An important factor in slots is ergonomics. This is about designing the most comfortable slot hardware from the machine itself with an anti-glare monitor angle, padded wrist rests, and chairs that you can sit in for hours. And the physical comfort of the customer is very important to keeping them in their seat. In video game design, we have no control over the player's seat because they're at home. But we have a different meaning for ergonomics. We call it comfort zone design. Players call it cozy gaming, and many of them set up their gaming spaces like this. To keep a player in your game, you need to make them comfortable with the experience. This means the soundtrack, sound effects, characters, dialogue, graphics, and the aesthetic are so comfy that players want to stay in your game. The longer that they're in your game, the higher the potential that they will buy something if the game has buyable content. Slot design has come a long way, and one of the most successful marketing strategies has been the licensing of popular TV or movie brands that customers know and like. Wheel of Fortune, Game of Thrones, Sex and the City, Walking Dead, Jurassic Park, Batman, Ghostbusters, Titanic, Rocky, Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, and Avatar are some of the big titles that have gotten the immersive hardware designs. And these huge brands have a ton of existing assets that can be used to quickly put together the game, and these brands are perfect for premium hardware. They have the potential to put players into a sort of comfort zone by replaying iconic audio loops, film clips, and longer video segments. Which brings me to audio. Like most of the time, slots are designed to be a loud, energized experience. Keeping the player hyped is one method of grabbing players and keeping them in your game. And many modern slots know the power of the audio keeps players in the zone. However, a curious design decision is to stop playing the music seconds after the spin is done, making the player spin again to keep the music alive. The idea is that players will want to spin to keep hearing the music because the music is a hook to keep players playing. But what if you didn't turn off the music immediately? One of the reasons why the music turns off, obviously, is because the casino wants the slot to enter a quiet attract mode when customers aren't actively in play. And this is understandable because so many slots have loud, high-energy music. But what if you made a slot that followed video game audio comfort zone design and it didn't have a high-energy soundtrack? You might be able to keep your music playing during the track mode on super low volume, and that comfort zone soundtrack would attract players because it's the only machine actually attracting. A soothing soundtrack that makes players feel safe, non-stressed, and happy fits into this comfort zone design ethic. This design style has higher player retention in video games. Some games to check out are Firewatch, Minecraft, Journey, Stardew Valley, and Animal Crossing. Another idea from video games that's proven highly successful is the idea of a soundtrack. Usually, slots have a single song, but in the video game world, some games reward the player with music when they level up or achieve a goal. In fact, that's the whole point of playing some of these games, is to unlock more music. And this idea could be applied to slots as a reward to players who hit huge jackpots, and the music could continue changing and only go back to the attract mode track after a player hasn't spun for about a minute or so. And if you play Grand Theft Auto, one of the main features of the game is that every vehicle that you drive has several radio stations, and each one of them has a huge playlist of music. And these are all licensed music that you've probably heard before, and it creates a comfortable space for the player when they're in a car. And players might want to keep playing just to hear all the music that matches the comfort zone that you've designed into your slot. Now I'll talk about multimodal design. Obviously, another successful pattern in slot design is multimodal gameplay, like we see with Wheel of Fortune. When you match the right symbols, the game moves to another mode that sometimes takes place on another screen. And this is definitely a phase of heightened hope, because the player knows that they will win something, they just hope that they will win big. And rarely do slots have more than one or two of these bonus modes. But many video games have dozens of modes, or these mini games, to keep players engaged. As an example, Stardew Valley and Zelda Breath of the Wild have over a dozen mini games in them. And as part of these games, players gather resources, and they can craft items when they have the right combination of resources. And what if a player in your slot matched 5 of the same resource, that resource moved over to an inventory area, and when the player matched the right combination of different inventory resources, a valuable item is created from the combined resources. And these valuable items could trigger a mini game that results in a win. And this is basically a method of crafting. Adding deeper mechanics to slots could be a way to raise the bar for player engagement. The more players invested in their progress, the more hesitant they are to leave the game. And if you keep the design of your game ephemeral, people can just leave. And the only thing keeping people playing an ephemeral design is hope that they're about to score. But if a player can build value in their time spent, and they can see that they're heading for a score, they're likely to stay invested. Remember, I'm not a slot machine expert, a slot design expert, and I don't know the industry rules I might be breaking by suggesting these ideas, and there's rules that are different everywhere. But if the rules are the constraint, many early video games found success because they found a way to use their constraints for something brand new. So success in many areas often comes from cross-pollination. Paying attention to trends in an adjacent domain can provide insight. Video game design has learned much from pen and paper and board game design. An incredible amount of video games depend on the Dungeons and Dragons formula that was introduced in 1974. Sure, RPGs are obvious beneficiaries of that, but Call of Duty, Fortnite, Battlefield, and many others also use D&D's basic principles for combat resolution, loot drops, saving throws, NPC decisions, etc. And here's another idea. Someday, those player cards will remember more than just the player's balance. They could save progress on multiple slots. When the player gets on their favorite machine, their cumulative progress could show up on screen and be a form of peacocking to interested viewers walking by. And if you've ever visited another player's home location in any popular Facebook game, you know what I mean. Slots can become more of a part of players' lives with the right design. The video game industry makes more money than TV, music, and film industries combined. There is a massive audience waiting for more. And so I see the future of slots incorporating the best assets and ideas from TV, movies, video games, to create rich on-location or online immersive experiences that players can lose themselves in and love. So thank you very much. And if you have questions, there's going to be a QR code.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.